Hey, you! Yeah, you! I got some really good Starcraft for you here. Alright, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I am back, and it is time for some more Starcraft 2. I was gonna go into an in-depth spiel about both these players, but we have got ourselves a TvP. It's uThermal and ShoWTimE, and the reason why I said I was going to go into a spiel, but am not going to, we have got uThermal going to be proxying ShoWTimE with a dirty double Bangles barracks. Dirty double barracks. Going to be trying to teach ShoWTimE the meaning of pain. I'm excited. I've cast a lot of TvP lately, but it's pretty much all been Clem. And so I'm excited to be casting another TvP of two top players. Like uThermal is a top European Terran, and he's going to be taking on the Wall, ShoWTimE. I'm not gonna pronounce his nickname, which, as I can't even pronounce it. I think people call him Daimur, which is the Wall in German. There we go. I gave it a go, but I do not speak much German. Now, yeah, ShoWTimE, he is such a good Protoss player. He's really fun to watch, and he seems to be a very, very nice player. I got to meet him briefly when I was in Korea. I was pretty nervous getting to meet all those pro players, but I want to go back sometime. That is definitely on the docket of things to do. Now, we have got ShoWTimE. He, pun intended, shows up to uThermal's base and then says, wait a second, that's no good. uThermal runs up with an SCV, his Marines coming up next. He's actually going to see that ShoWTimE has just delayed his Nexus due to ShoWTimE scouting this early on. And so I get the feeling that this proxy barracks isn't going to amount to too much. I think ShoWTimE's Nexus is just going to be delayed, and then all is going to be well, basically. This SCV is going to be getting chased by the Zealot a little bit. uThermal does sneak it back down. And yeah, ShoWTimE not going to have a Nexus on the way. Sometimes these proxy barracks hit when the Nexus is already building, but ShoWTimE with his scouting just simply didn't build a Nexus. uThermal, though, is going to basically try and pull one over on ShoWTimE. Like, I think it would be perfectly normal for ShoWTimE to assume that uThermal is just gonna cancel this proxy and basically just go into macro behind this, but in reality that is very much not the case, as behind this uThermal, he's starting to produce Marauders with Concussive Shell to hopefully tag and catch some of these Protoss units. So this is a very uThermal thing to do. He is basically the style Terran. He comes up with the most crazy builds, I'd say, of any Terran pro gamer that comes to mind. I mean, maybe Gumiho was up there, but oh, uThermal! No, uThermal, massive mistake. Oh wait, maybe not. The bunker is so close to dying. Will it die? Will it live? Looks like it'll just live. uThermal, ho ho ho, ends up forcing ShoWTimE to back off, keeps that bunker alive, and now he's going in with this strong push. ShoWTimE is having to pull the probes against uThermal. He's going to be losing a lot of workers. 7 workers die in total. The bunker also managed to stay alive. Looks like the SCV that was repairing it almost dies too, but it will get repaired more. ShoWTimE is in a spot of trouble, I'll say. I mean, he just finished up another 2 gateways, pardon me, so he's warping in some more units, but he's going to lose a pylon. uThermal is looking pretty scary. He can always retreat to this bunker, and he will. Looks like he's going to turn around, fight a little bit. But yeah, ShoWTimE has just been contained on one base for so long. The Robo was actually unpowered. I'm quite surprised not to see an Immortal or not to see a Prism yet for ShoWTimE to help defend. Immortals with Prisms are very good in positions like this, so I'd really, really like to see that. But instead, behind this, we just see uThermal getting up a factory, he's getting up a starport, and ShoWTimE has been contained for so long. He's going to be actually going for a one-base robotics bay, a crazy cheese from the Protoss player, or a crazy counter cheese, I guess. I mean, what does he want? Does he want Disruptors? Does he want a Colossus? I don't know, as neither of those units really come to mind when you think of like one base versus one base situations. I know Disruptors are seen as a comeback unit, but they're more of a comeback unit when the Protoss is down quite a significant number of forces, basically. Like you think of them being a comeback, getting big disruptor hits, when in reality, uThermal just has to pay attention to this one army this game, and so you don't necessarily want disruptors, I don't think. And we're actually seeing uThermal get some really good damage done by picking off that cybernetics core that's going to deny building of more sentries, deny building of more stalkers, and ShoWTimE behind this is actually just going to go for a disruptor indeed. But as long as uThermal's paying attention to his bio, that's really all he has to manage. I mean, he just has to not eat this one disruptor shot on his bio. Like, if it's all clumped up like this and he eats a big disruptor shot, that would be huge for ShoWTimE, but I'd like to imagine uThermal's paying attention to this. It's not like he's macroing up at 3 bases and he's queuing up tons of depots and things. No, he's really just one basing behind this. I'd like to see him be paying attention to this, and there we go, he is. He splits. He loses one Marauder, which is painful, but I'd still say this is quite a good spot for Liquid Thermi, because ShoWTimE is a one-base Protoss, which is never, ever a good thing for the Protoss player. This floating barracks has spotted that prism moving out. It also spots the probes binding out the back of this location. There's no disruptor at the top of this ramp yet for ShoWTimE, but he will have a second one to pop out. But oh, look at this. The Viking catches the prism. This is huge for uThermal. He is going to pick off that prism. This disruptor is now going to have to waddle back so slowly. And let me tell you, disruptors waddle very slowly. Looks like the bunker was cracked by ShoWTimE. That's good for him. He will force uThermal back. But uThermal is still in quite a strong spot this game, I feel. Just keeping the Protoss on one base for so long is not comfortable at all for the Protoss. uThermal, he's going to be coming up with siege units, which will help counter the disruptors, a couple of siege tanks. Then he's got the Liberator out somewhere. And so I really don't mind this spot at all for uThermal. He doesn't have stim, which is going to be a little bit painful when it comes to splitting against disruptors, and that's actually my main gripe right now with how uThermal's playing this. If he has stim, he just easily dives on top of this or easily dodges the disruptor shots. Instead, though, he is just going to rely on siege tanks and liberators to be his main counter force right now. A scan goes down, the disruptors are seen. uThermal knows ShoWTimE's expanding to this other location, but this is going to be a bit of a nasty crawling push from uThermal with siege tanks, with liberators. These are really good counters to disruptors. I mean, these disruptors can try and get hits, but the disruptor novas really can't. And so we're going to be seeing ShoWTimE. He's going to lose a gateway. He's going to lose a pylon while this is going on. As more siege tanks are going to rally across the map, uThermal is just going to be queuing up more and more command centers. So this is really good, I feel, for uThermal. The supply is equal, which is never a good sign for the Protoss player. ShoWTimE did get that Warp Prism speed, so it'll jet across the map very quickly and can maybe get some counter damage done, as there's really nothing back at home to defend for uThermal. So if there is a small warp, and that would be absolutely huge for ShoWTimE, as it could cause a world of hurt for his opponent. Now, looks like uThermal has just one barracks, which is actually going to be burning down because of this Stalker. So he's quite literally just on factory production. Viking and Marauder, though, are going to help these siege tanks start shooting away. Knocked off one of ShoWTimE's gas, which is quite painful. Going to have to build one of those that is natural if he wants to just hang on. But then we do see the Prism is coming in behind here. It's got a couple of Zealots in. There's a Viking, some siege tanks, though. But, oh, uThermal actually loses his one barracks, so he can't make any factories, if that's what he was thinking. And he's basically back in the Stone Age as far as tech he wants to produce. He has to fire up 2 more barracks, so he is going to be playing bio behind this. But I feel as if his production is going to take a really long time to catch up. All the while, looks like uThermal is trying to push ShoWTimE as hard as he can. He wants to pick off that Robo. If he gets that, that would be huge. He's got to be careful with these units on the high ground, though. They are vulnerable to disruptors, and a huge connection for ShoWTimE is going to be able to pick that off. Looks like these tanks are trying to cover each other as well as they can, so ShoWTimE's mining is being hindered a little bit. But I really do feel like uThermal, despite being on 3 CCs, he's handicapping himself because he hasn't been able to turn this into an orbital command yet. He's just throwing up his extra barracks now, so his production is so delayed. And here we're going to be seeing a DT run in for ShoWTimE. We'll see, is uThermal paying attention? He sieges his tank at the worst possible time. The DT is going to set on the tank. uThermal wasn't quick enough to pull to repair for this. He's going to throw up an eBay. He uses a scan to allow him to surround and kill this DT. It loses 3 SCVs in the process of that. The tank on the high ground was cleaned up. These disruptors are still doing work, and there's actually no high ground vision, so ShoWTimE's going to be able to shut this down. I've been trying to commentate this game, but it's just been so scrappy right now. And uThermal, I still think he's not in a bad spot worker-wise. He's doing fine. He's got a few siege tanks, but ShoWTimE has really gotten the weight off his back. Looks like there was a bit of harassment at this natural base, by the way, as the probes were running there. I've been trying to observe everything on this, but this has been quite a bit of a crazy game. ShoWTimE did get pressured quite a bit. He's only on 2 bases, whereas uThermal has mules. He's got a 3rd CC, so his economy should be better than that of his opponents. He's now getting into bioproduction. Like, his production was so delayed, and with losing that barracks, it did delay him more, I think. But yeah, the game is going to potentially normalize from here on out. That being said, though, ShoWTimE is looking to get some damage done. There could be some huge disruptor shots if those unload, get some big Novas off. Looks like they do inch out a bit. Siege Tank and Viking are trying to shut this down. Prism eats a Viking shot, loses a bit of HP, will have to back off. ShoWTimE, though, is actually just planning on getting up a 3rd base. Viking lands at the natural as ShoWTimE is actually going to kill off some of his probes. This is quite painful because while this is going on, there's also a Liberator in his main. So losing 10 probes is very hurtful for ShoWTimE. So uThermal, who's been so aggressive this entire game, has just been pinning ShoWTimE down. Disruptors for ShoWTimE are going to come in, but he's going to fly into that turret, so he's got to be careful. These are going to want to toss out some Novas. One's going to eat a tank shot. Looks like it does go down. ShoWTimE maybe should have seen that coming and lifted that up, but he didn't. So loses a disruptor, which is not cheap for him at this point in the game. Particularly, I didn't actually spot it, but he did lose his robo and have to rebuild it, the one that he had here. So this has been a bit of a rough go of it for ShoWTimE, getting really abused by uThermal. He's not out of the game just yet. He's got a Prism, he's got a Dream. The Prism being speedy really helps out when it comes to taking on Vikings, but ShoWTimE's gonna see that's a gold base getting up for the Terran player, which will not be comfortable at all for the Protoss if uThermal is able to reap the benefit from that. We're gonna see ShoWTimE send his units to the back of this mineral line, but Siege Tank should be able to do quite well in this situation. I think one tank was just picked off by a DT. There's a chance ShoWTimE is gonna be able to harass the back of this mineral line, but with good Siege Tank positioning and usage of his Viking, I think uThermal should be able to successfully mine from this base. We'll see, though. There's always the possibility that ShoWTimE will get some units into the main base, too, which will give uThermal grief. uThermal does have to pull off from the mining at this location for a little bit, and he's actually just going to load up. So this game is just going to keep being aggressive. The Prism for ShoWTimE does get picked off, though, so these 4 Zealots in the main base are simply it. uThermal isn't able to mine at his 3rd base just yet, but it looks like ShoWTimE's going to be abandoning that effort due to the big counter drop that's about to be getting off. ShoWTimE does have lots of units in position to defend this, so if he can shut this down hard, that would be very good for him. But there's also still a Liberator harassing him too. This drop does have to be careful for uThermal, though. It's going to come into the natural base, and it is going to scoot on out of there. Keep in mind, ShoWTimE doesn't actually have Blink to help him out with this. DT is going to kill one of the Marines. Is there a scan for uThermal? Yes, there is. The DT does get picked off, so that is quite nice for uThermal. Picking that off, just getting rid of it. There's nothing worse than scanning and not killing the DT. It looks like uThermal is just going for it, though, as he just charges forward, picks off a sentry or two, and this game is continuing on. ShoWTimE's starting to build up a better economy, but this Liberator is still giving him grief. Will be shut down, though, after killing off another probe. uThermal's economy, though, is quite good as well. With this gold base mining for him, he's going to have really good bio production once he gets up a few extra barracks. Then we'll see. I mean, uThermal is going to want to push across the map, it would appear. DT might have something to say about that. Force out a scan of his opponent. It's very nice for Protoss to be forcing the Terran to scan, but oh, then we see a drop of the natural as ShoWTimE, going to be denying his mining a little bit, forcing a unit warp in. These Marines being microed as well as uThermal can. They do have the +1, so that's really helping them out. Looks like uThermal will get away with that medivac, but then at the same time, he's going to be wanting to push towards the 3rd base of ShoWTimE, and this could be quite tough for the Protoss player, mainly due to the siege tanks, I'll say. The High Templar and the Disruptor can deal with the bio, but the tanks will definitely give ShoWTimE some grief. Already getting some shots off on his opponent. DT does get picked off as well with a scan. uThermal being smart, saving scans. Both the Psystorms go out for ShoWTimE. Looks like that was all the Psystorm he had. These Marines are pushing up the ramp with their 1-1 upgrade. ShoWTimE's going to try and hold on. He's been such a fighter this series, but or this match, pardon me. I don't know if he is going to be able to hang on any longer. Looks like he loses a ton of units in the tank fire. He got a bit of counter damage done with his Prism while this was going on, and he is trying to hold on as hard as he can. He's going to warp in more DTs. I mean, uThermal could, in theory, run out of scans, but he's probably banking them up, I imagine. DTs and Zealots do pick off one of the tanks from the rear. The Archon's doing a good job tanking against the bio. Is ShoWTimE going to hold on? By gosh, he does. He is not out of the woods yet, though. Reinforcements are peeling across the map for uThermal, and there is a lot of medivacs to heal up these Marines. It is pretty much just Marines, but there is a lot of medivacs to support these units. It's going to be all about the one big Disruptor hit. Will zone back uThermal for now. ShoWTimE realizes how he just needs to hold on till he's got more Psystorm, so he tosses up some force fields as quickly as possible, because ShoWTimE will just get rolled by Stim Marines that are on better upgrades if he doesn't have Psystorm ready to greet them, and he's just about 5 seconds away from getting some more Psystorm. He's going to be throwing up a 4th base while this is going on. He's anticipating this drop, heading towards his natural base. At the same time, we see these Marines coming in for uThermal. There is High Templar, but there's nothing to buffer for them, so they have to throw out all their Psystorms. That is so painful for ShoWTimE. If he had just 1 or 2 units, they could have picked them off, but instead he had to use all of his Psystorm. That's quite painful. His natural is getting dropped by uThermal. uThermal is really putting the pressure on his opponent. ShoWTimE is managing to hold on for now, though. A recall is getting used. This Immortal with the Zealot support could potentially push back this drop. A DT in the mix as well, even just slicing and dicing a couple of those Marines will shut that down. ShoWTimE has just been pressured non-stop. This is why they call him the Wall, though. You may try to kill him, but he is defending incredibly well. I mean, it looks so dicey for him. Like, bio drops that can sometimes wreak havoc have been getting damage done, but he's keeping it alive. He's almost got a 4th base established as well, which isn't great because uThermal's on his own 4th comparatively, but still getting up a 4th is a good step for ShoWTimE to get back into this game. He's at 140 supply, and his army is going to be quite decent with higher and higher supply. Now, I am still quite concerned for ShoWTimE, though, because at some point, relatively soon, like in the next 5 seconds, uThermal is going to have a double upgrade advantage, so it is all gonna be about the AoE that ShoWTimE has. He's got High Templar in his Prism. He's gonna need to get off some big Psystorms. While this is going on, though, more Liberator harassment hitting ShoWTimE's natural base. This base has just been attacked so much. I can't even imagine how many pros have died this game. 53 in all, and looks like uThermal is looking to push forward. Psystorm gets dropped out. It cuts up so many of the Marines, but the Prism does die in the process. There's a drop inside the main base. ShoWTimE derping a little bit, or I guess his units derping a little bit. Not ShoWTimE. He had the thought to respond to that, but didn't quite get his units into position well enough. uThermal using his 2-2 so effectively just kills the units that were trying to deal with this drop. 19 probes have died for ShoWTimE. He's done a good job holding on so far. There's even some counter damage getting done by Stalkers, but this path has been mined out. This is another attack path for uThermal, who's been aggressive this entire game. Look at how well these Marines are doing with their upgrade advantage. And while I believe in the power of AoE, as long as uThermal takes acceptable fights, just not god-awful fights, he will be able to close this game out. The Zealots just get cut up so quickly by the 2-2 Marines versus the 0-0 upgrades for ShoWTimE. Just a 4 upgrade deficit is too much to overcome, I feel. He's using DTs as well as he can, but he's just lacking AoE. He's lacking enough units, and GG gets called. uThermal does manage to take down ShoWTimE in a crazy match. I feel like I was just chasing the game, but these players were moving so fast all over the place. What a match between uThermal and ShoWTimE. Crazy aggressive TvP. ShoWTimE just showing us how good of a player he is defensively. Being able to hang on so many other Protoss players would have died before this. This game went almost 19 minutes, and ShoWTimE was fighting it out. Since the very get-go, he was just contained on one base, whereas other Protoss players, with the follow-up drops, the Liberator harassment, wouldn't have been able to deal with it all nearly as well as ShoWTimE did. So while he did lost, I do want to say he is an impeccable Protoss player, and he's proven that time and time again. Ladies and gentlemen, though, if you did enjoy this match, let's hit that like button. Hit a like for ShoWTimE's tenacity holding on. Hit a like for uThermal's crazy aggression and crazy builds once more. Let's try and hit 100 likes. If you're new to the channel, press that subscribe button. Join the Discord if you want to hang out, and follow me on Twitter. This has been LaughNgamez. I'll see you next time.